It's Josh and Claude and the AllNerdity podcast.
It's
Yeah.
Josh and Claude, and we're back with the second episode of the AllNerdity podcast. But is it the second episode, the third episode, or the fourth episode? You decide. We actually do have two episodes that exist in one form or another. We originally recorded an episode before the first one that we posted, but we had some audio issues, so we weren't able to use it. And then in 2020, when we were doing the C.S. Lewis screw tape letters over Zoom,
Oh
we had
yeah.
talked about bringing AllNerdity back as a podcast and threw that idea around. And we even went so far as to write up some ideas of what to talk about for that episode, but we never recorded it.
Huh.
So, in nerdy fashion, if you think about it, we are halfway to a trilogy, and we also have lost episodes.
Yeah, lost episodes.
You know what
That
that means, though?
they'll never
We're
be
going to
recovered.
need to have an infamous Christmas special.
No,
Yeah,
not this time.
it would just simply be an hour and a half of poorly sung Christmas carols.
Yep. In front of one of those YouTube Yule log fireplace videos.
Do you remember that old, it was the Elf Yourself thing where you
Yeah,
just have
yeah.
we could make two of those, and it's just our little faces in these elf bodies, and it's dancing on the other side of the Yule log while we're poorly singing Christmas carols.
That would be hilarious.
So, for our second episode, I did much like I did with the first one. I went through the website and I clicked through some things, and I wrote together kind of an outline. And in addition to one of the,
You're not supposed to tell them our secret.
oof, well, I did look for kind of the features that we had built stuff around on the website. In addition to the faithful fatherhood, we also did another thing called ANN, All Nerd News. So I found some nerdy news articles that I thought we could talk about today. The first one that I found was, and this was reported on TheVerge.com. Remote lockouts reportedly stop Russian troops from using stolen Ukrainian farm equipment.
Yeah, I saw a thing about this. How it's like the you know how John Deere has that huge like right to repair thing. Like everyone's like really against them because they, you have to go to like a dealership to do like software updates and all this other stuff. If like something breaks on a John Deere, like farmers can't replace it themselves. Like they have to actually go to a dealership. But it's funny because this is the first time ever where the right to repair thing like was a good thing because they were able to remotely lock out the tractors.
Yeah, they so the Russian troops stole $5 million worth of John Deere farm equipment, hauled some of it over 700 miles away, and then
Man,
that's when they found out that they were shut down remotely by the lockout, which makes the equipment inoperable.
that's
And
hilarious.
and then on top of that, the equipment, a lot of farm equipment has GPS technology now too. So they were able to use the GPS technology on the equipment and find out exactly where it is.
That's funny.
Um, but I guess that they are trying to hack into the equipment so that they can get past the shutdown so they can run it anyway.
Yeah, they probably will.
What I thought was interesting about all of that is because I had specifically focused on the right to repair thing, and because the last episode we had talked about the display console in my wife's car and how the screen
Yeah.
was delaminating, and it
Yep.
could potentially deteriorate to a position where the car could potentially strand us and become inoperable.
Yeah.
And I did get an update on that. They are ordering a new one, and
Oh,
you
that's
know
good.
the warranty is going to pay for a bunch of it. We're not sure if we're paying just the deductible or the deductible and half the diagnostic, or nothing. We don't have that yet, but
Which is dumb because it's like it's clearly faulty, and they're gonna make you pay for the that's just dumb.
well, the thing that bothered me is I called the dealership who was doing the warranty repair on it, and they had to. They're not a Jeep dealer. They're an all brand dealership. They're a used car dealership. They don't sell new cars. It's all used cars. And I asked him, I said, since we know that it's a material defect in the original equipment, is this replacement one that you got feature a new material that's not just going to turn around and delaminate in a couple years? And the guy couldn't tell me with 100% confidence that it was a different material.
Yeah, it's probably the same exact one.
But he did tell me that he has had a lot of Jeep vehicles come back for the same exact issue and that they've replaced them, but only 2 have come back because they delaminated, because the replacement one delaminated, which even the second time was covered under warranty too and was replaced, and then there wasn't a further issue.
Huh. So it could have just been a faulty one.
Well, I imagine there was a significant amount of material that they'd built for production parts and for service parts, and they just had to kind of move through this inventory.
Yeah.
And when you get to the service parts inventory, unless the dealers and GM had instructed them to specifically destroy those or rework them, they were going to be on the shelf until they were sold.
Yeah.
The dealer that's doing our warranty work did feel confident that it probably is far enough from the initial manufacturing that they've probably worked through all of the bad screens, and we would probably get a screen without a defect. And he didn't seem overly concerned about it. However, if he was concerned about it, I would be a lot more cautious.
Yeah.
So, I understand he's got to be that way. But the one thing that I thought about with the right to repair is, John Deere dealers or John Deere equipment operators, they cannot afford to have any downtime. If the equipment goes down, they need to either get it repaired or get it replaced so they continue going, because so much of what a farmer does really depends on the weather. So, I mean, they're working from sun up till sundown. They can't afford to be down because they could lose a whole week just to rain and things like that. So this has caused farmers to either have to hack into their equipment so that they can repair it themselves, which then John Deere is voiding the warranty on the equipment. And I don't mean to just pick on John Deere, because it's not just them. They just happen to be the biggest brand involved with it. And some farmers are going to the point where they're buying old farm equipment that they can find without computers, so that they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And so my question was, what do you think about equipment or electronics that are becoming so expensive or too complicated to repair?
Yeah, I think I don't think they become, too complicated or too I guess there's always a cheaper way of doing it, like when like a tablet, like an iPad. Apple is notorious for this, the whole right to repair thing. Like it's been a long time. I know there's a really famous guy on YouTube that owns a repair place in New York City, and he always makes videos about this right to repair stuff and how ridiculous Apple is, and how you can't find parts for things because people come in with their MacBooks or whatever, and it's not that they won't allow people to repair it. It's that they swindle people into fixing things that don't need to be fixed. So, example. So I know in one of his videos he talks about like a screen won't turn on like a MacBook Pro. You know, if you take it to the geniuses or whatever, they'll say, "Oh, you need a whole new screen." Well, he has the tools where he diagnosed it to this like one chip where if you replace that chip, it'll work. Like it's not the screen that's broken, it's like this chip. So if you bring it to him, he can replace the chip, and instead of like a $300 fix, it's like a $50 fix. And that's the sort of thing that Apple does, and it's not just Apple, it's a lot of places, but Apple is notorious for that, where you'll bring it to like the Genius Bar, and they'll say you need to pay for something that it's basically that's not the problem. They'll say like the motherboard needs to be replaced when it's actually like, a small piece on the motherboard that can be fixed. It's just, they don't want to, they want to charge you $1,000 for a new motherboard instead of doing that. But I don't know, and so I don't think it's a problem of it being too complicated. I think it's that the schematics and stuff aren't available for smart people to be able to figure out how to repair it. Then certain things I'm sure a regular person would probably have trouble repairing, but the problem is that if companies don't, you know, I think a lot of times the whole right to repair thing says that, the schematic should be available, which is kind of a gray area because, if a schematic is available for how you built something, you're going to have knockoffs, because if we tell you every chip and every capacitor and everything that's in a product, then you're gonna have somebody somewhere else that's gonna unnamed country. they're gonna try to, they're gonna build a replica of it. It's copyright infringement sort of thing. I mean, they will sue them, so that's kind of what helps that. But if you don't make the parts available, I know Linus Tech Tips. There was something. It was like one of the iMacs, something happened to his iMac where it broke and he couldn't find some board for it. Like Apple didn't even have it. Like he had to wait forever for them finally to like send him the part because you couldn't even go to the Genius Bar. Like they didn't have it, like you had to buy a whole new iMac if that broke. That's the sort of stuff they want to get rid of. So I don't know. I think I don't really think stuff becomes too complicated. I think it's just they make it harder for the layman to fix something. And I don't think that's something that companies really look into. Like they expect you to just throw it away and buy a new one. Like they don't want you to repair it.
Right.
But
If you have a $1,200 phone that's 2 years old and they tell
yeah,
you repair is going to cost $300-400,
yeah,
at that point you may be like, well, maybe I just get another phone.
yeah. But I mean, that's how you have like the screen places popping up where they'll fix your screen and stuff. Like that's the sort of thing that you want, because if you drop your iPhone and the digitizer's fine, it's just the glass, like why would you have to buy a whole new one? Why couldn't you just fix the glass? I don't know. But yeah, that's what I think about the right to repair thing. I think that we should have the right to repair, and I mean it's getting better too, I think in a lot of cases, but when companies don't make it available, which is dumb because you would think that they would make money on that. Like if they had the parts available and you were able to fix it yourself, I mean you still have to buy the part. I don't know. But I know Apple's excuses, especially, because they'll lobby in Congress and stuff about it, and they'll say, well, it's because what you said is too complicated, and the regular layman doesn't know what they're doing, and all this stuff, which is a bunch of crap. Because people, and that's actually an argument he makes is, your car, like if you have your car and something breaks, like you can go to the store and buy the part. What's the difference? And I don't know.
But that's even getting to the point now
It
where
is. Yeah.
there's so much computer stuff in the car that it's almost becoming impossible to fix it.
Well, you can if it was available. Like that's the thing with Tesla. Tesla's notorious for this too now, where you'll have like a wrecked Tesla but you can't just go and buy the batteries for it. Like they don't make that available, where you could fix it if the batteries were available for it. And that might be different now. I know that was a thing a couple of years ago, but I know there was this guy on YouTube that was buying wrecked Teslas and making his own battery packs for it, which was kind of neat. But that's like crazy expensive because Tesla makes deals with like these Chinese manufacturers that make the batteries, and they buy large quantities, so they get them like super cheap. Where if you and I were to go and we're like, oh, we need 2 battery packs, it's probably as much as the car. you know so I don't know.
We're at Walmart buying 9-volt batteries. We've got 7,000 of them. We're just
Rechargeable
shoving them in here.
energizers. Yeah. But I know your next topic, you talk about the 3D printing thing.
Yeah, so for the next one, thehill.com had reported that Biden to launch an initiative focused on 3D printing. And a quote from it said, President Biden on Friday, and I believe this was last Friday, during a trip to Ohio, will launch a new initiative aimed at lowering costs for American families by focusing on 3D printing. The AM Forward is a part of Biden's effort to improve supply chain resilience by getting private sector companies to purchase additive produced parts from smaller US-based suppliers.
So what does that mean? Like, I don't really
Ins-
get that.
Instead of relying on a low-cost manufacturer to build parts in, China or Taiwan or something like that, creating a 3D printing houses in America that can supply those supply those parts to us. And so when I first got involved with 3D printing, it was through my work, and one of the local libraries had these 3D printers, and I had created a batarang,
I
and
have it still.
you still have that batarang?
Yeah.
So my whole plan was, because your son was really into Batman at the time, and I was going to make this belt and this mask, and I was going to have all of these 3D printed batarangs. And the one thing that and it was going to be in this box, and he was going to open it up, and it was going to be like his Batman kit. And the one thing that I didn't realize is just how slow the printing process was.
Yeah.
And I remember we had gone to the library and we printed this well, I don't know if you went with me the
I
day
didn't.
I printed the
No.
batarang,
No.
but my wife and my daughter McKenna had gone to the library, and I had printed this batarang, and it took well over 2 hours, I think, for this small little thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to print 7 of these. I'll be here for like 3 days.
Yeah.
So I ended up not printing them. But the 3D printing technology has changed significantly, since then. I do know I have an article on my blog, claudewalworth.wordpress.com, where I talk about 3D printing that batarang and actually have the date when we did it. But it was definitely more than 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But the 3D printing technology and the materials for 3D printing have drastically improved. So the turnaround time, the cost, the durability of the material, and all of that has gotten much, much, much better.
Yeah, I know. Um, I know at my work we have like a billion 3D printers, and I remember one of our 3D printers was a resin 3D printer. Like it basically did it upside down, and it would use like it was like this pool of this liquid, and it would use like a laser to harden layer by layer. It was really neat. That was actually pretty quick. Like you could print. What did I print? I made a Raspberry Pi case, and that took about an hour. And that's pretty big. I mean, that was bigger than the Batarang was, you know.
Right.
And this was like 3 or 4 years ago. So.
Well, when I one of the first objectives that I had with 3D printing is I wanted to make a case for my phone at the time.
Oh yeah.
But then I found out that there was a temperature tolerance on the for the material, and I was afraid that if it was, because I wanted to be able to mount it in a
In your
thing on the
car.
windowsill.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
if
okay.
it got too hot, it would have melted the case on the phone, and I was like, well, I'm not willing to risk that.
Yeah.
Um, but the technology for 3D printing has gotten significantly better. So I mean, I know that they can print all kinds of different materials, and they do use 3D printing to build small houses.
Oh yeah.
Like they'll bring the material and the printer on site, and they'll just print the materials in these modular things, and then build the house.
Yeah. It usually uses cement, I think. Some sort of cement.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because when you think of 3D printing, it's almost kind of like injection molding. Just you
Yeah.
don't have to buy them. You just don't have to have created the mold ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I it's interesting to see that the federal government is now going to be encouraging more 3D printing to make materials for manufacturing because it seemed like such a new technology when we first got on it, when we first learned about it and first started using it.
Yeah.
And it was just it was very rare at the time that a library had a 3D printer, and there was only one library around here that had a 3D printer, and it was the one in Fayetteville. But
Yeah.
but now there's a 3D printer right in the one
Canastota has one, right? Yeah. Yeah.
in McKenna. They have I believe they're not STP files. I can't remember the exact file type, but they have several file types, and they had one of a little dragon, and my daughter wanted that, so she went down to the library and she, printed it and
Huh.
let it run for a couple hours, and then went back and got it,
Do
which
you
I
have
thought
to pay for it too, right? Like so
it's
many cents or whatever?
yeah, it's like so many cents per ounce, I believe,
Yeah.
and so I don't remember what she told me she paid, but I mean, if she were to buy a little plastic or vinyl toy like that at the store, it would have cost her way more than it did
Oh
for.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, all right, 3D printing is cool, but we talk about nerdy things on here too, and it seems like when we get into nerdy things, we get talking about lots of movies and TV shows and stuff like that. Last week we talked about Doctor Who, and this week they announced who the new actor for Doctor Who was. And I have no idea. Like, I've heard the guy's name, and they said some of the other shows that he was in, and I have no idea who he is. I don't know if
Yeah,
he's one or not.
I didn't know. I didn't recognize him. What's his Jodie Whittaker? No, that's the current
That's
one.
I think it was NCUTI.
Oh yeah.
Name is spelled. I don't know how you pronounce that,
No idea.
but I
Oh yeah, he does look familiar. What was he in? Hold on. Yeah. Was he? No. Never mind. I don't know who he is. I thought he looked familiar, but apparently he doesn't. No, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I'd try it again. You there?
all right, we are back. We had some technical difficulties, and all
Oh
right, we are
no.
back. We're
Say
live
say
now.
say that again.
We are back. We had some technical difficulties and we dropped the Skype call, but we are back and we are recording again. We were talking about Doctor Who and we were talking about the new actor and if we knew him from any of his previous roles, and I think we kind of settled on we're not really sure. We don't have cable anymore, so I don't know how many episodes of this I'll be seeing unless it shows up on a streaming service. But I really haven't watched it for the past several seasons. I mean, it's probably been 4 or 5 years since I really watched Doctor Who.
Yeah.
My last favorite Doctor was Matt Smith, and after he left the show, I just sort of lost interest in it pretty quick. But, that's cool that they hired a new actor. I know there's a new showrunner too, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. Doctor Who may not be, something that I watch regularly, but, we'll see what it is. But I did have a bunch of stuff related to movies that I wanted to talk to you about. Have you seen the trailer for the new Weird Al movie called Weird?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was you remember how, what was it? Will Smith, or not Will Smith, Will Ferrell has this comedy thing. I don't know if it's still around, but he used to have like a YouTube channel and it had like comedy stuff that he did. He partnered with a bunch of comedians and he would do like funny stuff. And he wasn't in all of them, but uh, it reminded me of something they would have had on there. And so I thought it was a joke. Well, I follow Weird Al on Instagram, and he was like posting all about it. And then Daniel Radcliffe was like in an interview of some TV, like one of those late night things, and he was talking about it. And I was just like, oh my goodness, it's actually real. So we'll see.
I had known about the movie because I had seen Weird Al talking about it on Instagram, you know. So I watched the trailer and I remember thinking, I was like, that doesn't look funny. It just
Yeah,
doesn't look funny. And so I was a little disappointed. And I watched it a couple more times because I really want it to be funny and I really want to like it.
yeah,
So I watched the trailer a couple more times and I saw someone had posted on YouTube underneath it and they had suggested, they go, this looks like it's intended to be like a Weird Al video that's a parody of these other movies where they featured these other superstar, like they did the Prince one and the Elton John one.
yeah, yep.
And I was like, that would actually be really clever if it was just one super long Weird Al parodying these other.
Yeah,
Um,
I bet it's gonna be good. I think it will be.
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely gonna watch it, and that's the thing. If you're willing to watch the trailer, I mean, you're gonna watch the movie. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's horrible and it doesn't warrant a second thought on your part, I mean, people that want to watch that movie are going to watch that movie just because it's Weird
Oh,
Al.
yeah, yeah. I mean, people hated UHF, but I still to this day think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I found it funny when I watched it.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't go in there and think to myself like, "Oh, this is, the greatest blockbuster ever." I was like, it's basically an indie cult film and it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all
That's
right. So, tonight a new movie by the Skit Guys opened up, and the Skit Guys are a comedy duo that do Christian focused humor, and some churches will show their videos and stuff before sermons, and they have a new movie out called Family Camp. Um, so the trailer looks pretty funny, and
I
I've
I
always
I bet that's gonna be really funny.
um, so I've always enjoyed their videos. And sometimes you'll see comedy that'll be it'll either be like this is a Christian comedian and he's doing Christian comedy and it's just not funny, or it's a comedian that's funny, and he just happens to be Christian, but there's nothing like Christian at all about the comedy. It's just not not offensive or vulgar. And the skit guys, especially in the stuff that we've seen, the shorter clips and the and the multi-part things that they produce, they can balance the Christian message that they want to get and be funny. And I think it's because they're willing to poke fun of Christian culture.
Yeah.
But they're not doing it. They're not doing it to be mean. They're not doing it to be rude. And they're also not afraid to be humble and vulnerable in what they're talking about too.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about the movie, and my wife wants to see it too. She actually wants to go see the movie tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So we might go to. I noticed it's not playing at the local theater in Oneida, but it is playing in the larger theaters, like the Marquee in New Hartford.
Oh, okay.
And the Movie Tavern and Destiny USA and all that.
Huh.
So we may try to go see it tomorrow night. But I think it looks good. And if we get to see it, I think we should talk about it on this podcast. I think it would make something cool to talk about.
Yeah.
I read some reviews of it already, and it sounds like it's going to be a good movie. So.
Huh.
All right. So the other movie I wanted to talk about, the new superhero movie that came out, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So are you ready? I'm about to say something very, very, very controversial.
Don't say it.
Superhero movies are played out, and superheroes and comic books are the worst part of nerd culture.
Okay. So I love Benedict Cumberbatch. So he hosted Saturday Night Live on Saturday, and he was hilarious. So I'm excited to see it. Like I liked the first Doctor Strange, and maybe that's a weird thing to say. I don't know, but I'm excited. I want to see it.
I and I wasn't specifically saying that because of Doctor Strange 2 that superheroes are played out or that they're the worst part of nerd culture.
They are played out though. I do agree with you. Like the Spider-Man movies and stuff, like I'm kind of like over it, like I'm just kind of like, all right, when when I saw Endgame, I was just like, all right, I'm done, like, and now it's kind of like, I don't know, like, would I ever watch the Avengers again? Probably not. Like, I know what happens.
Well, I think that was part of it. Is like they were event movies. We went to the theater. We had our snacks and drinks and had fun.
Yeah.
It was you, me, and
Pierre, right?
Pierre.
Didn't Pierre go? Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a fun time, and it was your spectacle blockbuster movie. But I don't sit there and be like, for example, Independence Day or Wild Wild West. They were these big summer blockbuster movies. You don't hear people being like, oh, I can't wait for the sequel to Will Smith's Wild Wild West, or
Yeah.
I'm just clamoring for, the Independence Day sequel or remake or whatever.
The sequel was okay. I didn't like it as much as the first one. I didn't think it was nearly as good.
It would be different if perhaps they had not waited so long to do it.
Yeah. You know what movie I'm really looking forward to is the new Jurassic Park. Like I didn't like the other Jurassic World movies. Like I thought they were kind of dumb, but this one is awesome because like Sam Neill is in it and like Jeff Goldblum's in it and all the original people are in it. So I think that's why I'm excited. Like I'll definitely see that one.
I never really saw the Jurassic Park movies when they came out.
Oh, the original ones?
Yeah, the original ones.
Yeah.
my parents didn't really take me to the theater. Well, my parents didn't take me to the theater at all when I was a kid. The only time I ever went to the theater is when my grandparents took me, and I think we saw Home Alone
Huh.
and some Treasure Island movie, and I think there was one other movie that we saw in the theaters, but that was it. And I remember when the Jurassic Park movies had come out, I had I had said to my aunt at one point, "Oh, I never saw that movie in the theater." And she's like, "Well, you were into dinosaurs, weren't you?" And I was like, "But I
I never saw any of those in the theater either. But I think it was because I was too young. Like, at least to my parent. Like, we went to the movies, but I didn't like Jurassic Park. The only one of those, like the original three, of worth seeing is the first one. The other two are kind of like, like they're okay, but the first one's the best, you know.
Right.
And but yeah, I never saw those in the theater. I didn't see them until they were on VHS.
Well, we've seen all 5 of the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World movies because my son went through a huge Jurassic Park stage, and we have I actually have a video. It's super granulated because it was like 2 phones ago or something,
Yeah.
and so it's been compressed and compressed and compressed. But he wanted this huge Brontosaurus Jurassic World,
Oh, I think I remember that. Yeah.
and we had bought it for him, and he was ripping the box open. He was ripping the wrapping paper off the box, and he's just screaming, "Oh, that's what I wanted! That's what I wanted!" But so he was extremely into dinosaurs, and the folks at the daycare that he was going to were really impressed by how he knew the
He
names of
named
all
off
the
all of them.
dinosaurs.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And we would buy him Jurassic World toys all the time. He just loved the stuff.
Hmm.
So, and my wife thought he was a little young for the movies, but I showed him the first Jurassic World anyway. It was a little bit too scary for him, but he seemed to handle it pretty well.
Yeah. I
Uh,
remember my youngest, I think it was Eli. I can't remember which one was really into Jurassic Park, but the first one, I thought it was Eli, maybe not. One of them were really into it and they watched it over and over and over again. And I think it was Jurassic Park. I hope so. But yeah, and like Eli's really into Star Wars. Like he'll watch all of them. Like if you let him, he'll just keep watching all the movies. It's really funny.
I do have to admit that I I had only ever seen growing up. I had only ever seen Star Wars when they would show them on TV. So
Okay, yeah.
I'd only seen bits and pieces. And then when the remakes came out, I watched A New Hope and Return of the Jedi in the theater, but I didn't. I guess I just missed Empire Strikes Back. But I saw them out of order, and then I had bought them on VHS when they came out as a collection, and then that was the first time I was ever able to watch the trilogy all the way through.
Huh.
And I remember when A Phantom Menace came out, and I was a freshman in college, I believe,
Huh.
and I was very immature, and I remember hating that movie. And I remember we were at some family function, and I had used some inappropriate language to express how much I disliked that movie, and I was really embarrassed by how
Eh,
sure I was.
George Lucas really ruined those movies, I think.
Well, so I mean, I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan of a Phantom Menace when I first saw it. I liked Attack of the Clones a little better, and then I liked uh
Was it Revenge of the Sith? Is that what it
yes,
was?
yeah, the
Yeah.
third episode 3. I really enjoyed that one. Um, But when they all came out on Blu-ray, when the set of all 6 came out on Blu-ray,
Yeah.
watched them again, and I remember I was watching The Phantom Menace, and it was when McKenna was young,
Yeah.
and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, well, this is a kid's movie. This has every element that a kid would like.
It does. Yeah.
And one of the things that really bothered me about not liking it is I was like, this has one of the best villains in all of these movies,
Oh yeah.
Darth
Yeah.
Maul.
He's the best part, and he dies in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean,
Spoilers.
and then in or is it Attack of the Clones? General Grievous
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
great villain.
Oh yeah. He's still my favorite.
Um, but anyway, so my whole thing about superheroes is I just think that I it was kind of hard to say that knowing that Neil Adams and George Perez, who are just two um, extremely influential comic book creators and artists, and they've both passed away in the last 30 days. And like, not to diminish their work, because they created some absolute amazing work. And there are some comic books out there, and I'm not saying like all comic books are the worst part of nerd culture, but like, because I mean, I could still consider Art Spiegelman's Moss about the Holocaust, to
Hmm.
which is a graphic novel, to be a very great piece of literature. But I look at, and you look at comic books and you see some great stories that have been published, such as The Dark Knight Returns, and um, some of the Frank Miller Daredevil stuff and things like that. Just some of these, even the Watchmen series, 12 issue
Yeah.
series, just these really good stories. Now, granted, those aren't aimed for kids. I mean, those are aimed for adult readers.
Yeah.
But in general, a lot of comic books that are published they're throwaway content, and it gets treated like it's supposed to be this great thing, and people don't want to throw them out because, oh, it may be collectible if there aren't so many pieces in the future. And then you have all this convoluted continuity, and you have these people they're bullies about it, and they just like fight over it, and there's just petty things,
Yeah.
and it's just like, and then you have creators of comic books that get to work in this industry with these characters that people love for years, and they'll do some controversial change to the character, and then they'll go on social media and basically they'll say things that are disparaging to the fans that are upset about the change that they made to the character. And it's just like, I understand that fan input should not be the only thing that drives the storylines when you're creating a hero.
Yeah.
But I also think that if you make a like if you make a change to a character that everybody hates, and they tell you that, and they're still buying it anyway because they want to have a complete collection, and you just mock them, or tell them that they're a phobe or an ist or whatever, because they don't like the change. I just think that stuff is just horrible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And and then you have people that are going to be like, well, if you're going to make this change that people don't like, and we tell you that, and then you're going to insult us about it, and I've tolerated this for so many issues, now I'm going to tell you I don't like it by not buying it anymore. And then the
Yeah.
sales just fall off a cliff. And then, oh, the art form is dead, and da 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 da. And I just, as a creator of a comic, you have to produce something that's quality, and you have to earn the respect of the fans.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you can't make something that's garbage, put it out there, and then just chide the fans for not liking it. and I just feel like comics in general has kind of got that combative attitude towards fans, and I I just, with all the superhero movies, there's just so many of them.
Yeah, it's true.
They used to be rare, and now there's like 20 of them a year. They're just not that interesting. Characters that you've never even heard of and don't necessarily care about.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to know what happened in 20 other movies to have to enjoy a new movie.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of think that I just think that it's overplayed. I just it's just my least favorite part. Comic books and superheroes have become my least favorite part of nerd culture.
Huh. All right. Well, we've been going for about 40 minutes now, so I think it's time for me to ask you questions.
Oh man.
I'm like, what is your favorite color? All right. If you could be the creator for any existing fictional pop culture character, who would it be?
Well, when I originally came up with that question, I was thinking about it, and at first I was thinking Doctor Who, because he's not constrained by space or time, and he's very intelligent, so you can pretty much tell any story that you want with that character.
It's true.
But then I got thinking specifically about Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and just how funny that universe is. And you know, in that universe, he could really do anything that he wanted.
Oh,
And there
yeah.
was such a wide array of characters that in that universe, he could tell any story that he wanted and make any joke he wanted. So I think if I could be a creator of any fictional pop culture character or universe, I think it would want to be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
All right. That's a good choice. Jess actually found a shirt that says "So long and thanks for all the fish."
Oh,
It's
that's
really
awesome.
funny. Yeah, she wore it yesterday, and it's an awesome shirt. And all right. So, question number 2: what video game would you play with Jesus?
I would play Mario Kart.
Yeah.
I would, if I was going to play a video game with anybody, I would want to play Mario Kart with them.
Do you think he'd get aggressive?
Well, let's hope I'm not being sacrilegious here, but he might play in God mode the whole time.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. He wins no matter what.
Well, I'd often wondered about that because I'm not very good at video games in general. I'm pretty bad at them. So
Would he
when
let you win?
so when my son and I play Mario Kart, we usually play 50cc or 100cc.
Yeah.
But I imagine that, I just imagine if Jesus was playing like Mario Kart against you, he'd be playing on he'd be playing like top player in like 250cc, and you're like trying to do the best in 50cc.
Yeah. He plays Mario Kart in a higher plane of existence. All right. Star Wars or Star Trek?
So I do have to be honest that if I had to pick which either one of those franchises was offering as forms of entertainment today, I would probably only watch The Mandalorian on Star Wars, because I enjoyed that show. I kind of got disgusted with Discovery, and I really never took interest in Picard. And I guess Strange New Worlds is supposed to really kind of appeal to older fans of the show, but what I've read about it so far, it almost feels, it just doesn't seem like it would be interesting to me. Well, I didn't want to say terrible.
Careful.
Careful.
I'll talk to you about Picard after the podcast because I have opinions, but I don't want to give them on this.
I don't think if I could only watch stuff that's currently being created, I would watch Mandalorian. So that would be Star Wars.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
I could watch
Mandalorian is really good.
if I could watch from any generation, I would watch Star Trek: The Next Generation
Yeah, yep.
because when I was a kid, there was a year when my brother and I lived with my grandparents, and when we ate dinner at night, we would sit in the living room, and the night that Star Trek: The Next Generation was on, we would watch it. And that was my first exposure to any type of science fiction. And I remember loving that show to the point that, I think I'd said last episode, I had believed that I wanted to grow up and be a writer for Star Trek: The Next Generation. And my dad had bought me this thing through Publishers Clearinghouse, and it was this big binder with all these pages in it, and it had character bios and ship bios and all this
That's
stuff,
cool.
like this huge fact book. And I was like, oh, I need that because when I'm a Star Trek writer, I need to know about all these alien races and all this stuff about the ships. And um, but Star Trek: The Next Generation is definitely my favorite
Good.
of either
Yeah,
version.
I will say modern Star Trek. I'd rather pick modern day. I would like if it couldn't be an older thing, I would pick Star Wars because of the Mandalorian and stuff like that. Like because Picard and all the newer Star Trek stuff, season 1 of Picard was very good. I really enjoyed that. Season 2, I have other opinions, and I haven't tried the other one.
Well,
I don't.
season one of Discovery, especially the first half of the season where they're at
Yeah,
war
oh
with
yeah.
Klingons,
Season 1 of Discovery was really good. I liked it. Yeah. The second season, eh.
and when I was kind of coming up with these 5 questions, we were kind of putting them together kind of quick. And I just figured, oh, Star Wars or Star Trek is kind of that's like a Marvel DC type question, kind of a nerdy
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
But there's a guy that I work with. He's at one of the other plants in a different state, and he's a manager, so he hires people. And he told me that one of the questions he asks people that he interviews pretty much after the interview is over is he asks them Star Wars or Star Trek.
Oh wow.
And I remember thinking to myself that at first I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, that's pretty interesting. And then I thought about it some more, and I don't think he asks that question of somebody unless he knows he's going to make them an offer anyway, and it's just kind of as a joke question.
Yeah.
But if I had been asked that question and then I never got offered a job,
Yeah.
and I had to wonder in the back of my head if I, had picked the wrong one and that's what made him mad, I
Yeah.
would feel horrible.
Yeah. That's true.
He told me that, and I did ask the guy about it one time, and he goes, "Well, the correct answer is both. Why do I have to choose?"
That's a good one. All right. What was your first video game system?
So my first video game system was an Atari 2600,
Nice.
and at that time, all of my friends had Nintendo systems, and I really wanted to play a video game system, but it just wasn't in the cards for our family because we didn't have a lot of money. And then I remember one day, it was around Christmas, my dad had this. He came in and he said, "Oh, we got this for you," and he hands my brother and I this box, and it was an Atari, and
Wow.
we couldn't believe it. And he had bought us, and he gave us this Atari 2600 and all these games, and I remember just being shocked because I couldn't believe that we actually were able to get one. And I never asked my dad, where did you buy it, how much did you pay for it, anything like that. I didn't care because I was young
Yeah.
at the time.
It
But
fell off the back of a truck.
I know that didn't happen. But we had that infamous ET game.
Oh, I have
Actually,
that. Yeah.
actually, we still have it. The system, the controllers, and all the games that we had are still over at my parents' house.
That's funny.
But we had the ET game. We had a Ghostbusters game.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
we had a game called Solaris, which
Yeah, that's a classic.
yeah, I remember when we would get frustrated with it, we would blow up the fueling stations on the planet, blow up the planet,
That's funny.
and we had asteroids.
You had Pong and everything? Like,
We didn't have Pong, but we had a Pong type tank battle game.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, we had we have this we had this NBA game where it was 2-on-2 and it was a half court game.
Huh.
And I remember I enjoyed playing the game, but it was too hard to try to get close to the net and shoot
Huh.
because it always just seemed like the computer's player could just steal the ball from you. So you would always just try to make the 3-point shot.
That's funny.
But that was a fun game. I can't
That's
remember
awesome.
all the rest of the games that we have for it. And I'm not even sure if it still works because I know that there's quite a bit of dust sitting on the system. So
I bet it does. They were pretty hard. Gaming systems back then were really simple. So, I bet it still works.
maybe that would be a fun thing to do is kind of get that system, the controllers and the games, and then kind of get something so we could hook it up to a modern TV and try just to play those games again.
Yeah, I could get because I have a 2600 and I have an adapter for it.
Maybe we'll have to do that. Next time I'm over at my parents, I'll have to look at the games and see if there's anything that would be fun to maybe
Yeah.
like Spiritual Warfare, just stream a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And so the last question, what are your top 5 podcasts or YouTube channels?
So I do watch a lot of YouTube stuff, but I definitely listen to more podcasts. So the number one podcast that I listen to is the Audio Mullet podcast, and that's Doug TenNapel, who created Earthworm Jim, Ethan Nicole, who created Axe Cop, and for a while Michael J. Nelson from Mystery Science Theater 3000 was on there, but some people tried to cancel him, so he had to get off the phone. And they talk about things that are out of style but are eternally awesome, like a mullet, which is funny because mullets kind of seem to be coming back into style for a little bit.
No, really?
Yeah, because I know like Miley Cyrus had a mullet, and I started seeing kids at my daughter's school that had mullets.
Oh
And I
my
was
goodness.
like, I was kind of surprised by that because I didn't think anybody would want to be caught dead with a mullet.
Yeah.
But all three of those guys worked together on the VeggieTales series that was on Netflix.
Yeah.
And
was the Phil guy involved in that?
no, at that time Phil Vischer had gone through bankruptcy and lost Big Idea in the bankruptcy.
Oh my god.
So it was VeggieTales was owned by DreamWorks at that point.
Wow.
And Phil Vischer was involved because he is voice talent on the show, but he wasn't the showrunner. Doug TenNapel was the showrunner.
Wow. So Phil had to like sell the company because of bankruptcy? Is that how that worked, or how?
Yeah. I think the company went bankrupt because they tried to do like a big movie or something, and it was just they didn't have the financial backing or something. I guess I don't really know exactly
Oh
how.
wow, they went bankrupt in 2003.
Yeah. And
I
I
didn't
think
know
it
it was
was
that long.
I think it was when they tried to do their first big movie. It was either a Jonah movie or like the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything movie.
Oh wow.
But yeah, they went he had to sell Big Idea in the bankruptcy, so he no longer has the VeggieTale characters. The VeggieTale characters were owned by DreamWorks. And I'm not sure if DreamWorks still owns them or not, because I know there are new episodes of VeggieTales, but they're not on Netflix. They're on like they're on a streaming service like TBN or PureFlix or something like that. But
Well,
then
I found a big article on why they went bankrupt, and it's like huge. It had nothing uh, that added to it because I guess there was a lawsuit put against them for something, and then on top of that, it was the Jonah movie, something to do with the marketing costs. But in the end, that wasn't what it was. It's a really long article. I'll read it another time.
but yeah, the Audio Mullet podcast I like, and you have three creative guys. They're all funny. They're all Christians. They would talk about their Christian walk. They would talk about some cultural events and stuff like that. But the part that interested me the most is when they would talk about their creative process and the challenges of being a creative. So that's the first one, and these are in no specific order. That's one of my favorite podcasts. Pints with Jack, three guys that talk about C.S. Lewis books. They'll read through a book, and then they'll have several episodes where they'll discuss it. Sometimes they go chapter by chapter, depending on how long the book is. So Pints with Jack. Mike Nelson has another podcast called 372 Pages Will Never Get Back. And basically, he and Michael Nelson and Connor Listoka, who is a guy from the new company that they work for called Riff Tracks, they will talk about books that they're not going to like. And they got 372 pages they'll never get back because the first book that they did was Ready Player One, which was 372 pages. And it's a funny podcast, and I enjoy it. Another podcast that I really enjoy is Like Trees Walking, and that's another Michael J. Nelson podcast that he does. And it's Michael J. Nelson and the pastor of the church that he attends, and they talk about things that have to do with faith or just things in general. One section that they had is Michael J. Nelson would have Michael Berge, who's his pastor, eat canned fish. He had to try all these canned fish. That was funny. And there's another podcast that I enjoy called Cultish, which is they talk about different cults and things that are cult-like. And it's a bunch of Christian guys, and they're coming at it from a Christian perspective. And I've always found it to be an interesting podcast. And then my honorable mentions would be the Focus on the Family podcast and Family Life Today.
No, that's good.
Mainly because Focus on the Family is a good resource, and Family Life Today is another good resource. And the hosts are Dave and Ann Wilson. And Dave Wilson was the chaplain for the Detroit Lions for several years. And he was on the team the year they went 0-16.
Oh.
And, they get a lot of interesting guests in there. And, it's not, it's not your typical nerdy thing, but I do like listening to athletes tell stories about, when they were athletes and when they were training, or, when they were, in their varsity or junior varsity or, whatever, and just practicing, before they became stars. It's always interesting. Those stories are always interesting to me. But so those would be my 5 podcasts and my 2 honorable mentions.
Nice. Yeah, I don't listen to podcasts that much. I probably should, I guess.
Well, it worked out for me because with my job, I have writing that I do, and when I'm writing and reading, I can't listen to anything where people are talking or telling a story, or if it's music with lyrics. I just need to be super focused. And there are these videos that they have on YouTube that they say they're like ADHD deep focus music, and it's just kind of like this atmospheric ambient kind of music. And
Yeah.
like I can put the headphones on and just kind of block everything out and just be super focused on proofreading what I'm doing or what I'm writing, and that's fine. But when I'm doing other things where it's just like creating an illustration or things like that, I can listen to the podcast because I'm not competing by trying to read. I can just hear it and enjoy it. If I'm listening to something where I specifically want to hear every single word, I generally will not try to listen to those while I'm working on something that I need to be focused on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but I guess another honorable mention podcast that I would talk about is when Ethan Nicole was still with the Babylon Bee. He was on their weekly podcast, and I would listen to that. Since he's no longer with the Babylon Bee, that podcast is a little bit different.
Hmm.
I still listen to it, but it's not like one of my. I don't get super excited when I know that there's a new episode to go listen to. Not like I used to.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. All right. Well, I think we've gone long enough here, and the this should be up tomorrow, I'm sure. So it's been fun, and next week is another week.
Yeah, we'll be back for episode 3.
Yeah.
Our
All right.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. All right. Catch you next week.
Yep. Catch you next week.